Welcome back to the third episode of the Clear Thought Politics podcast, where we critically analyze American politics and culture through the lens of skepticism and reason. This is one of the most important things I will ever say in my life. This topic is why I started this entire podcast. I hope you pay close attention to this episode because the following discussion is about the reality of your life and the danger that your mind is constantly subjected to. Most people have seen the sci-fi movie The Matrix, but if you haven't, here's a brief summary. A guy learns that the world around him is an elaborate computer simulation or a virtual reality. Everyone he's ever known is trapped inside it, unaware of the dark truth, that humans are actually enslaved by evil machines and used as an energy source. The man is given the choice between swallowing a red pill or a blue pill. The blue pill will wipe away his memory and deposit him back into the simulation, blissfully unaware of the truth. The red pill will wake him up and reveal to him the mechanical horrors of the real world. I'd like to introduce you to a new concept that I call the red pill framework of reality, or in short, the red pill framework. You haven't heard the name, but you've definitely seen this concept in action. It began with religion, and it spread through politics and culture. Here's how it works. Someone walks up to you and tells you that everything that you know is a lie, and you must wake up to the truth. In every case, the truth is just whatever that person believes. Imagine that you're walking through a crowd of people at a really weird party. The first person you bump into says, "Hello, I'm John, and I'm a Christian. I'd like to share the Word of God with you. You have been living a life of sin, and you must wake up to the truth of Christ." Now, you've met people like John before, and you understand that John has good intentions, even if he is a little pushy. Maybe you yourself are a Christian, so you already agree with most of the things that John says. But as you talk to John, someone taps you on the shoulder. You turn around and a new guy says to you, "Sorry, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation. And I'm sorry to say John is wrong. I am Ibrahim, and Islam is the real truth. Our book, the Quran, even says that it is the last revelation of God to people. You need to wake up to the one true God, Allah." Now, at this point, you aren't alarmed. You are aware that different religions have different and competing truth claims about the universe. You bump into a Hindu and a Jew and a Zoroastrian for some reason, and all of them tell you the same thing. They have the real truth, and everyone else is wrong. Each person is absolutely confident about their own position. Bored of religious talk, you drift to a different room in the party. Here you meet a group of rather unwashed potheads in sandals, and one of them sputters to you between bong rips that he doesn't like your shirt. You ask him why, and he says, "Well, that shirt was made in Bangladesh by child slaves in a sweatshop." You check the tag on your shirt, and sure enough, he's right. It was made in Bangladesh, and you can probably guess who made it. He continues, "You should be wearing free trade clothes made with sustainable hemp products. Corporations use slavery for massive profits, and they pollute the earth with unsustainable products. You've been brainwashed by American consumerism, and you need to open your eyes, man." Now, although this kid is a little obnoxious, he is sort of interesting, and technically he's not wrong about what he's saying. So you tell him about the conversation you just had in the other room with Ibrahim and John, and this guy says to you, "Oh man, those guys need to wake up to the fact that religion is used to control people. It's all fake." Now, by this point, you've knocked back a few beers talking to this guy, and suddenly you realize you need to find a bathroom. But as you wade down the hall through a sea of faces, a woman stops you. She's got a problem with your shirt, too. It's too preppy, and she assumes that you are a liberal. She says to you, "Liberalism is a mental disorder. Liberals want to destroy American democracy and erect a communist dictatorship in its place. The fact that we have too many gun laws is proof. You need to wake up to the truth. The Republican Party is trying to save this country." Not wanting to engage in another debate, you brush past the woman and enter the bathroom. But you didn't realize that someone else was in there. While you pee, the shower curtain rips open behind you and a drunk, naked man taking a bath says to you, "Hey, I just watched this YouTube documentary on how NASA is lying to us about the fact that the Earth is actually a flat disk and not, as they claim, an oblate spheroid. You need to wake up to the truth, man." Before you can get your pants buttoned up, another guy sticks his head in through the bathroom window from outside and screams at both of you, "Aliens landed in Roswell and they've been body snatching and replicating people ever since. They're planning on world domination through nuclear war. You idiots need to wake up and see the truth. The president is a reptilioid from planet Zengu." Like I said, it's a weird party. But you see the pattern here. In order to sell a worldview to someone, it needs to be packaged up in a way that the target person will be receptive to it. One of the best ways to sell a worldview is to wrap it up in a sexy package that appeals to the person's intellect. It kind of goes like this. Most people are stupid sheep, but you are so smart. You can join the club of smart people who know the real truth. And then the real truth is just something you would otherwise struggle to believe. The red pill framework of reality is the needle that people use to inject their worldview into your brain. It is your job to be aware of this and to not let appeals to your intellectual vanity coerce you into believing something that you know you should not believe. What prompted me to write this episode of the podcast was an experience not unlike the party scenario I just walked you through. A few months ago, I was innocently lying on my couch watching a movie when I began receiving text messages from two friends. One of them is much more liberal than me, and the other one is much more conservative. To be clear, I was holding two separate conversations. My liberal friend told me that I was brainwashed for deciding to support the Democratic nominee even if it wasn't my preferred candidate. The conservative friend told me that I was brainwashed for consuming news that he considered part of the mainstream media. Both of these people told me that I needed to wake up. It was a truly Orwellian experience. By the way, you're going to hear that word a lot in this podcast, Orwellian. If you haven't done it already, please do yourself a favor and drop everything. Order yourself a copy of George Orwell's novel 1984. It's a short read and it's one of the most important things ever written in literary history. It is the Iron Dome missile defense system against bullshit for your brain. And I'm going to make references to it throughout this podcast. There is another fascinating concept that I think you should know about because it is equally important to the red pill framework, and in fact, they go hand in hand. I thought about calling this one the Inception Factor, but frankly, I like the other name I came up with more. The Onion of Bullshit. In case you've never seen the movie Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio enters Cillian Murphy's dreams, then creates a dream within a dream. Leo then enters that dream, where he creates another layer of dreams, and so on and so forth, until he's several dream levels deep inside of Murphy's subconscious mind. Leo's goal is to plant an idea so deeply nested in Murphy's subconscious that when Murphy wakes up, he thinks that the idea is his own. Now, let's illustrate the onion of bullshit, and then we'll talk about how it works. After you leave the weird party, the flat earth guy and the body-snatching aliens guy start having a fascinating conversation. They lay in the grass outside, looking up at the stars, talking for hours and hours, and at dawn, the body-snatching aliens guy turns to the flat earth guy and he says, "You know what? You're right. Now I see the truth. I was wrong about body-snatching aliens. I see now that the Earth is flat and that the aliens are just a distraction from NASA's fake space program. I have awoken to the truth." How about another example? You meet Darcy, a 30-year-old woman who is now your new coworker. She tries to get you to join her church, but when you get there, it's quite obviously a dangerous cult. They do sacrifices and blood worship and all kinds of psychotic nonsense. So you leave the building and you advise Darcy to escape that cult while she can. A few months later, Darcy approaches you at work and tells you that you were right. Her church was in fact a cult, and she left after waking up to the truth. She has found a new church with much better people. But she then proceeds to tell you that her church is doing a fundraiser to build a spaceship so all of the followers can go live in the eternal paradise of planet Zengu. You slowly back away and never speak to Darcy again. Here's how the Inception Factor, or the onion of bullshit, works. Escaping one illusion does not mean that you have escaped into reality. You might have escaped into another illusion layered over the one that you were trapped in. You move from one plane of illusion to another, and you might spend your whole life moving through multiple layers of these illusions. This is a fact that so few people seem to realize when they have a shift in their worldview. Everywhere you go, you meet people who will tell you, "I used to be a stupid liberal, but then I woke up and started thinking for myself. Now I'm a conservative." Or, the reverse is also common. "I used to be a religious conservative, but then I went to school and now I'm a progressive liberal Buddhist." Now, the point here is not that changing your mind is bad. Changing your mind as the evidence presents itself is a really good thing. The point is that people tend to be even more convinced of their own position if they formerly had a different position. They inherently think that all changes in their own views are good changes. So the next time you go through a dramatic change in your worldview, keep in mind that your new worldview might seem foolish to you in a few years. Always be suspicious of what you think you know. Always reconsider your certainties. Question your convictions. By doing so, you will sharpen your mind. One last thing I'd like to illustrate is the accusation of brainwashing. And this one's fun. Bill and Sarah are both Mormons. Bill used to be Jewish, but he became a Mormon after befriending some of them, including Sarah. He says that his conversion is proof that he has an open mind. He says he was once a fool, but now he sees the truth. However, after a few years, his good friend Sarah leaves the Mormon church and she becomes a Catholic. Even though Bill and Sarah both changed their religions, Bill views Sarah's conversion as evidence that she was brainwashed, not that she was open-minded. Now, if the situation were reversed and Sarah converted from Catholicism to Mormonism, Bill would have said that Sarah was open-minded and truth-seeking. But since Sarah is doing something that Bill disagrees with, Bill is suddenly unwilling to evaluate Sarah's decision in a reasonable way. He does not realize that the circumstances that caused Sarah to become a Catholic are probably very similar to the circumstances that caused Bill to become a Mormon. Instead, he accuses her of being brainwashed because that's the only explanation that he is comfortable with. He does not like the idea that someone left the Mormon church. So now you've learned about the red pill framework of reality, the onion of bullshit, and the accusation of brainwashing. Now you see how sexy worldviews are sold to people on the open market of beliefs. You see one example of how people choose and change worldviews, and you see how they deal with situations in which someone disagrees with their choice. Keep these three concepts in mind at all times: the red pill framework, the onion of bullshit, and the accusation of brainwashing. They will be your armor and your mirror. So what should you do in this world full of competing beliefs and views? I can tell you what I do. Imagine a doctor's office. When you go to see the doctor, you enter the building, but you aren't in the exam room just yet. You first have to sit in the waiting room until your name is called. I treat beliefs the way doctors treat patients. When someone walks up to me and says, "Hey, did you know that the Illuminati controls the government?" I remember what they said, but I keep it sitting in the waiting room of my mind, outside of where I keep my own personal beliefs, until I'm able to spend more time considering that claim. I do not need to agree or disagree with the claim right away. In fact, I never have to agree or disagree with it. I can just be aware of the claim, and that's as far as it gets into my brain. This keeps my mind relatively free of what I call thought pollution. If I'm going to believe something, and if I'm going to make claims about it, I want to have an extremely good reason to believe it, and I want to be able to explain that belief thoroughly. Always remember, it is better to reject or to waitlist a claim that turns out to be true than it is to accept a claim that turns out to be false. There is no hurry to make up your mind about all of the claims that are fed to you. The other thing I recommend is maintaining a very high standard of evidence and a high burden of proof, but we'll talk about that later. For now, keep in mind, or at least keep in your waiting room, the red pill framework, the onion of bullshit, and the accusation of brainwashing.